After what feels like an eternity, Nintendo has finally announced the Nintendo Switch 2.
You've seen this before?
11 times, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, so a lot of the excitement for this announcement was kind of undermined by the fact that the entire thing has been leaked for several months now. And on top of that, with this being so similar to the original Switch, there's really not much to get excited for with the console itself. However, they did show one whole game. Just one. You know, that's more than the PS5. That's right, we finally got Mario Kart 9, which is really the big new announcement of this presentation. We've been waiting for an entirely new Mario Kart game for almost 11 years now, which is a bit absurd. But obviously, with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe being one of my favorite games ever made, I am more than hyped to see what Nintendo does with Mario Kart 9. So in preparation for this game's release, I've decided to make several prediction videos based on what I think might be coming to the game. And the elements I wanted to start with the most are the retro tracks. Ever since Mario Kart DS, every game in the franchise has brought back certain tracks from previous titles and remixed them with that game's mechanics. It's always exciting to speculate on which fan-favorite tracks are going to get a chance to shine in the new game, only for Mario Circuit 3 to be chosen instead. So in today's video, I'm going to be making my predictions to see which retro tracks I think will be joining the new tracks in Mario Kart 9. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and let's jump right in. Now before we start for real, I want to discuss some important guidelines for this prediction video. For starters, I believe Mario Kart 9 will have 48 tracks available at launch. This would match Mario Kart 8 Deluxe before the DLC, and while I do think Mario Kart 9 will get DLC, I'm not going to be predicting any of that in this video. That means I believe there will be 24 total retro tracks. I'm going to make this whole video and there's not going to be a single retro track in the game. Now originally I was thinking it would be fun to take an equal amount of tracks from each game so that everything got the same amount of representation. But then I looked at the Super Mario Kart tracks and I just couldn't do it. I just can't do it. So I'm not having any limitations on how many tracks can come from each game, so long as the total reaches 24. Speaking of 24 though, one of the big new things from this trailer is the fact that in Mario Kart 9 there will apparently be 24 people racing at a time. That is a huge jump from the 12 racers in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. That's at least like 3 more people. Since we don't really know a special mechanic for this game yet besides the fact that there are so many racers, I tried to tailor my track choices around the large number of people. I'm also assuming that Mario Kart 9 will have all the gimmicks from previous games like anti-gravity, gliders, underwater driving, half pipes, and so on. I'm also not limiting myself to not include tracks that were already remade for 8. While I did try my best to get mostly unremade tracks, I mean Mario Kart 8 just has almost all the good ones and I don't want Mario Kart 9 to feel like it's just getting the leftovers. So with that being said, let's go chronologically through the games to see which tracks I picked from each. Alright, Super Mario Kart. I mean, if you want, you guys can just skip this section. I genuinely stared at this track selection for a long time trying to figure out a single interesting track to possibly bring back. At first I thought the Vanilla Lakes could make a comeback seeing as they've never been remade outside of Tour, but a slippery, compact track with 24 racers sounds absolutely miserable. I don't doubt they'd make it bigger and more open if it does come, but at that point it's just very plain. That's also not to mention the stupid snow blocks that fill up the track. So I decided to pick something else. I tried to find the most open track here, and the one I eventually landed on was Koopa Beach 1. For starters, a lot of my choices in this video are harder tracks, so having a good beginner course is important for the early retro cups. This track has also never been remade, aside from Super Circuit, but that doesn't really count. Now yes, this track is incredibly plain, but they could certainly add obstacles and underwater driving here to make the track more complex. There's also a theory going around that this thing here in the Mario Kart 9 teaser could be some sort of wonder seed, which could possibly transform the track to make it more wacky, which I hope is true because this track looks boring. Assuming that is the case, that could work well here since this is a pretty blank canvas. Obviously this is really not the most exciting track choice, but it's Super Mario Kart, what did you expect? Okay, moving on from there, we've got 2 tracks from Mario Kart 64. Now I'm just gonna say this right now, there is one track that I can guarantee you every single other Nintendo YouTuber who makes a prediction video on this game is going to choose. I mean, maybe not and I look stupid right now, but the reason I think that is because for Mario Kart 64,
there's only one left to use! It will be used in Mario Kart 9. I know it, because you wanna know why? It's Wario freaking Stadium.
that's right, Wario freaking Stadium. This is the only track from that game to never be remade. And to be honest, I get it kinda sucks, but I think Mario Kart 9 could be its chance to really shine. This track is massive, which I think would work pretty well with 24 racers. Obviously, they would need to add a bit more here to make it more interesting as there's a lot of blank space, but at least the bumps and ramps can now be tricked on to make it a bit more satisfying to race through. As for my second Mario Kart 64 track, this is going to be the first one that was also in Mario Kart 8. As I said, I generally wanted to avoid this, but I thought this track would be well suited for 24 racers, so why limit ourselves? I think this high racer count would be perfect for Yoshi Valley. The whole gimmick is that there are a ton of different routes, which would be great for dividing the 24 racers. Now obviously Yoshi Valley has the problem of the left path being far superior, so everyone just goes on it, but this game would give them a chance to make the other paths much more comparable speed-wise. After all, they did update the paths quite a bit for Mario Kart 8, so why not do the same for Mario Kart 9? I'm also just a Yoshi Valley fan, so I'd be more than happy to see it make a comeback. Alright, I'll be honest, I had a pretty difficult time with Super Circuit. A lot of its tracks are either boring or already remade in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Sometimes they're both. But I didn't want to give this the Super Mario Kart treatment, so I did come up with 2 tracks here. The first one is already in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, but with a huge asterisk because I'm talking about Sky Garden. This was always one of my favorite tracks in DS, and they just completely butchered it in 8. Like, the remake is a fine track on its own, but in comparison to Sky Garden, it's no contest. At least the remix of the song is a banger, but otherwise, I really need Mario Kart 9 to fix this track. As for the second course I could see coming, I bet this will be controversial, but I'm going with Rainbow Road. For the sake of this video, I wanted to limit myself to only one retro Rainbow Road. I don't doubt that we'll get more as DLC, but for launch, I think they'll keep it to a minimum. I also think they'd choose one they haven't remade yet, so the choice was between Super Circuit, Double Dash, DS, and 8. Of those, Double Dash is a bit compact at parts, which could definitely be annoying for 24 people, and I already have a lot of DS and 8 tracks coming back. I also just think the gimmick behind Super Circuit's Rainbow Road is really cool, where the walls around the track are actually bounce platforms. This would be really cool to see translated to a modern game, and I think would be very chaotic with 24 people constantly jumping all over the place. Plus, this track is easily moldable, so I'd look forward to seeing how it's changed in Mario Kart 9. I'm sure people will disagree with this due to it probably being the least popular Rainbow Road, but again, I think the others like 3DS and Wii will come as DLC eventually. Oh boy, time for our biggest game yet, as Double Dash gets a whopping 3 tracks. For this one, I really wanted to try going for courses that haven't been remade before, which left me with 4 options. I already explained why I didn't want Rainbow Road, but Bowser's Castle also just looked really cramped as well with some especially sharp turns. So that left me with 2 more, and I think both would be neat additions. Starting off with Wario's Coliseum, this is one of the series' most unique tracks, as it's the only one to be 2 laps instead of 3. Wario just can't count that high. That's because this track is really long, which could help spread out the racers a bit. I predict if this does come back, the road will be made quite a bit wider, and there will be a lot of anti-gravity, as there are quite a few turns here that have some pretty strong slopes. I just think this would be a pretty fun one to see come back. The other track I predict here is Mushroom City. Wait a minute, a city track? Don't worry, this isn't like the Toro ones because I actually think this would be a fantastic fit for Mario Kart 9. One of this track's main highlights is the fact that there are a ton of different routes you can take, which is once again good for splitting up the 24 racers. This is also, spoilers, the only car-based track from any of the games I've chosen to come back. But for the final Double Dash track, we got our third 8 Deluxe veteran. I mean, we have to have Baby Park. This track's whole identity is that it's simple and chaotic, and can you imagine how chaotic it'll be with 24 people on it throwing items? Baby Park is already one of my favorites, and I think this would make it infinitely more insane. I imagine it would be made a bit bigger to accommodate 24 racers, but I think that would be worth it to get it working in this game. Of all the Double Dash tracks, this is definitely the one I want to see the most. Wait a minute, I talked about Mushroom City and didn't use a funny car green screen one. And now it's time for the game that I had the easiest time choosing courses for. We've got ourselves a grand total of 4 courses coming from Mario Kart DS. That's because this game was done so dirty on the Booster Horse Pass. Okay, well, it's not that bad, but my feelings were hurt. That's because there are 3 pretty big fan favorite courses that didn't make it to 8, so I think they're all going to be coming to 9. First up, we of course have Airship Fortress. Yes, there are some tight corridors that could be rough with 24 people, but there are also plenty of big empty sections like the Spiral Tower. And also, if this doesn't come back again, I'm gonna lose my mind. So Airship Fortress is my most wanted track, but there are still some more I'd like to see from DS. Delfino Square has always been a great map, and I think it would fit well with 24 racers. There are a few parts of some split pathways, and I think the area with the drawbridge is definitely open enough to support the large player count. Alongside Airship Fortress, I've also always been a fan of this track, so I'd be really happy to see it make a return. And the final of the snub trilogy would of course be Figure 8 Circuit. No, I of course mean Luigi's Mansion. Now, I was a bit hesitant on this one at first due to how tight the mansion could be with the large player count, but they could always just make it bigger, and the outdoors area is perfectly sized to fit a ton of people. Plus, spoilers again, this is the only spooky map I'm including in the list. But for the final Mario Kart DS track, I'm including Waluigi Pinball purely because it's a fan favorite and I'd love to see 24 people driving around on the pinball table. Sure, this was another one that's in 8, but I highly doubt people would complain. Mario Kart Wii was a tricky one because they included nearly every track in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Like seriously, only 5 of them didn't make it in. Of this selection though, I think it's clear that Toad's Factory has to be in Mario Kart 9. This is another fan favorite, and it's really surprising that this has never been remade. It's also got plenty of big open areas, which again would work great with the high player count. As for the other tracks that aren't in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, I didn't want Luigi or Mario Circuit, so I crossed them out. Bowser's Castle I heavily considered, but there were just so many cramped areas that I think racing on it would be a bit miserable. So that left Dry Dry Ruins, which I think is fair enough since I don't have a retro desert yet. This track is also great because the road has a ton of space here. I don't think any adjustment would be necessary for this to work with 24 people. It may not be the most exciting choice, but you've always got to have at least a few mediocre choices in a retro selection. I didn't want to stop Wii there though, as I think it's got room to bring over a few tracks that were in 8 Deluxe. I decided to go with Moo Moo Meadows and Coconut Mall. Moo Moo Meadows is another big track, and again, I could really use some more easy tracks to put into the early retro cups. And how could you say no to that smile? For Coconut Mall, to be honest, this might be painful for 24 people, but it's so popular that I would love to see it get a true HD remake. But yeah, I think 4 Mario Kart Wii tracks is a fair starting amount before DLC. Mario Kart 7 is actually going to be a bit of a shorter one with only 2 tracks. I feel like most people think the 3DS original tracks are kinda mid beside huge standouts like Rainbow Road. Pretty much all of these standouts are already included in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and I decided to go with only tracks that haven't been remade yet. Of this selection, one of the tracks that I always enjoyed was Shy Guy Bazaar. This is a very unique setting from any other Mario Kart track, and I was honestly surprised it was never added in the Booster Course Pass. Some other great things about this track are the several different routes that are available in the market section and the general spaciousness of the rest of the track. So that was a pretty easy lock-in for me, but I was really struggling for a second track. I was considering doing either Woohoo Loop or Mako Woohoo, but decided against them because I wanted to stick with purely Mario-based tracks for this video. I'd be happy if either of them got in, I just don't see them being very likely. So my actual choice for this game is going to be Mario Circuit. We always need a retro Mario Circuit in these games, and I think this would be a great choice. Originally I was going to go with Mario Kart 8's Mario Circuit since it's my favorite, but Mario Kart 8 has plenty of other courses coming over, as we'll see soon, and the Mario Kart 7 version is pretty well liked too. You get to go inside the castle. I don't really have much else to say on this choice other than we needed some sort of circuit track eventually. But we've made it to our biggest game of the bunch. Kind of. We've got 6 tracks to talk about for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Obviously, being the newest entry, it makes sense to get the most remakes. Now, I had a pretty difficult time choosing which tracks to bring back because I love a lot of the selection here. I wouldn't be surprised if my predictions for this game turn out to be completely false. But to kick us off, the first track I chose was Shy Guy Falls. This has always been one of my favorite tracks, and I think it would be a fantastic inclusion due to it being one of the best tracks to show off anti-gravity. It's very clear that you're moving up and down waterfalls here, and I think it would be fun scrambling for boost panels with a ton of other racers. My second choice is going to be Electrodrome. Not only is this a fan favorite track with an excellent aesthetic, a lot of this track is split into 2, which as I've said would be good to split up the racers a bit. A lot of the track that isn't split on this pink and green road is also quite open, so I think this would fit right in and everyone would be happy to see it. But the track I would want the most personally would have to be Mount Wario. I've said over and over again that this is my favorite track in all of Mario Kart. I think it could also work decently with 24 people as well, except the forest section that's gonna be hell. Honestly, this is definitely another pick that's just influenced by track popularity, but I'd be very sad if this doesn't come back. As for another track, this is definitely my wonkiest pick from 8, but I think Ice Ice Outpost would be kinda cool. Get it? I said cool like ice. Laugh. The reason I chose this one is because the entire gimmick is that the road is split on 2 paths, green and yellow, for the entire race. As I've said, that's a perfect idea with the 24 racers to have a ton of people filling each path. Yes, this course isn't as beloved as the other 3 I chose so far, but they can't all be winners. Well, I think this track is neat, you guys are just haters. Okay, that was it for base Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. There were definitely a few more that I was heavily considering, like Bowser's Castle and Thwomp Ruins, but I think I'm good with the 4 I got. I also decided to not go with any of the non-Mario tracks. While it wouldn't surprise me if Link, Isabelle, Villager, and the Inklings return, I don't think their playable status implies their tracks will automatically return. They could always get new courses based on their franchises after all. But what about the other 2 tracks for 8 Deluxe, because I did say I chose 6? Well, those aren't really 8 Deluxe tracks, as these are both tour originals. Despite the city tracks being, well, just awful, like just so disappointing, like they're terrible. The tour original tracks are mostly pretty good. The first one we got in 8 Deluxe was Ninja Hideaway, and I think it could make a comeback. This track is known for having a ton of different routes, which would be great for 24 racers. Plus, despite a lot of it being inside, there's usually a ton of space to move around, so I don't think this track would be too cramped. As for the other and final retro prediction, I'm going to go with Squeaky Clean Sprint. It was a hard choice between this and Yoshi's Island, but I think this one just squeaks by. Okay, come on, that one was good. There's a lot of very open spaces here, especially with the bathtub. Sure, the pipes could get a bit clogged, but I think making them bigger would be an easy fix. This is one of the most well-liked tour originals too, so I think people would be very on board to see this return. And that'll just about do it for my predictions. Here's a list of all the tracks that I think will be coming. I know a lot of this video came down to just which tracks have a lot of space, but I do genuinely think with such a big change to the player count, that is super important to consider. And as I said, I think we'll be getting DLC, so this is purely launch predictions. My hope is that I can at least somehow get a few of these correct. Oh, who am I kidding? Just add Mario Circuit 4 already. But anyways, that's it for this video. Do you love Tokyo Blur and hate me for not including it as a prediction? Let me know in the comments. I'm sorry for uploading so many Mario Kart based videos in a row, but I am really excited for Mario Kart 9 here. Blame Nintendo for literally not announcing anything else. I do plan on making a bunch of other prediction videos on this game in the future, so hopefully you all stay tuned for those. I also do have to warn you guys that I just started a new semester of college, so uploads may get a bit shaky over the next few weeks, but hopefully I'll be able to get back into a good flow. Before I go though, I have to make sure to thank my members, being Milanessa DeZoro, Maid02, Kid Kid Trunks 15, Shrugface Uwu, Wyatt Derpy, Caddy Shroom, Ryan, Miss Jade Delot, Draco Star, Gnarled, Yanni the Duck, SMA, B Major 2003, Arson the Raboot, Sir Musty, Belandor, Puggles Are Fun, Trader Mo, Diluted Colors, Cinder CC, Jade Avery, Pruncel Clone, Thicky Reiki, SJ100, Ungenio TM, CW McCain, Tibby, JubeTube Z, Tesseract Nuclear, Mr. McMahon 5702, Sebi, Hippopotamus, Jameson Pageson, Wilbur, Golden Sandslash 15, Z-Frost, Stuffy Ant, Just Dex, Conkanut, Keep, and Christian Flattery Sequel Edition. But anyways, Strabones for Smash, and I'll see you guys next time.